Chapter 1. Serving Under Pressure. For if I make you sorrowful, then who is he who makes me glad, but the one who is made sorrowful by me? 2 Corinthians 2, verse 2. It is not easy being a pastor. While the pastors gathered in a local ministerial group will probably find any number of issues to debate passionately, worship styles, infant or adult baptism, reliable Bible translations, with this statement, surely all will agree with a solemn nodding of the head. It's not easy being a pastor. Even at the very best of times, when there is a spirit of peace in the congregation and the preaching is being well received, when the pastoral workload is not too onerous and most of the youth seem to be moving in the right direction, it is not easy. Because even then, there can remain troubling feelings of inadequacy when a pastor knows that he should do more and do it better. The work of being a pastor is often attended by a multitude of daily challenges, stresses, and niggling concerns. For instance, there are still those church members who rarely return pastoral phone calls or friendly texts, and the people on the far side of the auditorium who generally do not seem interested in your well-crafted and Christ-centered sermons each Sunday. And, as in all of life, there are moods in ministry. Within the same span of 7 days, a pastor can go from having a joyful sense of strength and near invincibility, like that which can come after a particularly good Sunday on the pulpit, to dark feelings of self-doubt, anxiety, and uselessness, like those which can arise after a couple of particularly difficult pastoral visits. Even when stress levels are low, there can remain the nagging forebodings of a looming burnout. How much more difficult preaching and pastoral work can be when they are done in a pressurized atmosphere. Sometimes a congregation is bitterly divided in a dispute over a fine theological point or over some local practice or policy. People are making their cases, taking sides, and are keen to see where their pastor stands. Sometimes there is the swelling influence of an unbiblical worldview or philosophy, one that is having a marked impact on how the members view their faith or the life of the church, and the pastor needs to respond. At other times, a pastor might face direct challenges to his own ministry. He might be unjustly accused of some wrongdoing, or his progressive or regressive views might be perceived as a threat by some faction in the congregation. Or perhaps the pastoral performance standards in a congregation are so fluid that they are unachievable. In such situations, a pastor can begin to fear that his ability to work in the congregation is being seriously hindered by the unrest, pressures, and criticisms. Even more seriously, the pastor might fear that some congregants have begun to weaken in their commitment to the true gospel. And if the gospel is thrown out, what is left? For a host of reasons, the hard task of pastoring can become even harder, and a minister and his congregation can be left wondering how the church can possibly move forward together in Christ. As we explore 2 Corinthians, we will see that the pressures on a pastor were all too familiar to Paul as he ministered to this congregation. Flashback to 1st century Corinth. Reading 2 Corinthians is like eavesdropping while a stranger is talking on his phone next to you on the bus or in the grocery store. You are really curious to know what he is talking about, but you hear only one side of the conversation. In this letter, we are allowed to hear one side of the conversation between Paul and this church, and it is a conversation about some intensely personal things, such as the history of their relationship, how they have been treating each other lately, and what they can reasonably expect from each other. And at times, the conversation gets heated with emotion. Before looking at the difficulties that Paul encountered in his long and complicated relationship with the Corinthians, let us consider who these people were and the backstory of Paul's connection with them. It was some time around A.D. 51 that the Apostle Paul, while on his second missionary journey, arrived in the city of Corinth. When he arrived, what kind of city did he find? Corinth was a city with a checkered past. From before the 5th century B.C., it had thrived as a Greek city-state,